Not to oversell it, but redraws are kind of perfect if you feel sad because you think that you can't draw. Do a redraw. So if you ever look at your old art and you're just like please don't. Hi, hello. If you're new here, my name is Brandy. I'm a digital illustrator. It is that time of year again. If you are not new to my channel, you have probably heard me talk in other videos about doing redraws. I always love to do redraws, especially at the beginning of the year, just because it just makes sense. It's a new year. I love getting progress check, like a check-in of where my art is. Not to oversell it, but redraws are kind of perfect. Like if you don't know what to draw, do a redraw. If you feel sad because you think that you can't draw, do a redraw. So anyway, yeah, that's what we're doing in this video. And yeah, I feel like I always make this disclaimer whenever I start doing a redraw, but I always get comments of,
I liked your art style better before, or why are you shitting on your old art?
And I just want to say, like, even though I am kind of critiquing my old art and like just pointing out the mistakes that I made back then, that doesn't mean that I don't like that art style anymore, or that piece isn't still super important to me. In no way am I trying to like rag on myself because I, got better at art. I don't know. Sometimes I get like those kind of comments and like I think people think that I'm being too mean on myself, or like I don't know. I just want to put the disclaimer that like I absolutely love the first artwork that I did and this new version. So it's not like a either or kind of thing. I love them both for different reasons. Like I think objectively things are better in my newer version, but I don't think that that means that my first version is bad, or that I'm like pooping on anybody who, if your art looks similar to this first version, I'm not like pooping on that. Like I'm just using this as an opportunity to show myself and others like the improvement that I've made, to hopefully motivate you and inspire you to do your own redraws and see how far you have come in your own art. So yeah, with that out of the way, let's get to the redraw. So this is the painting that I'm redrawing, and it's of Rapunzel with, of course, lanterns around her. I love painting a Rapunzel lantern scene. I've done like a million at this point. That scene from the movie is like just so iconic to me. I absolutely love it. So anytime I have an excuse to paint it again, I will. I feel like I've done a lot of Tangled fan art in the last year, especially. Like even in the last couple months, I feel like I've just had a lot of Tangled fan art recently. I don't really know why that is. I just really love drawing Rapunzel, obviously. I made a couple of paintings with Eugene in them this year, which was really cool. One of my goals last year was to paint more men, so that's cool. Anyway, so this first version that I did, this is actually a really important piece to me. It's very like near and dear to my heart because I can distinctly remember when I painted this the first time, a little over a year ago now. I very often stayed inside my comfort zone with paintings, and I made a video sometime last year talking about how something that I've started doing is trying to get 1% better with each painting, and just like changing my mindset to, instead of focusing on engagement and numbers, just trying to get 1% better with every single painting. And this Rapunzel painting was kind of the first painting that I did where I had that mindset, and I really pushed myself. I had never really done a lighting scene like this before, and it was definitely challenging, and it's still challenging in this newer version that I'm showing you. I definitely struggled with the lighting because there's like lanterns all around her. I couldn't figure out how to make the shadows work with the lighting and not overdo the lighting but still have shadows that made sense, and it was a lot. Another thing I remember from this first painting is I had just kind of learned the concept of warm lighting and cool shadows, and I took that to heart in this painting. I definitely oversaturated my colors, I think, and made everything super bright, and I was trying to convey the warm light and the cool shadows. I definitely think I overdid it. So for this redraw, I definitely wanted to sort of reel it in a little bit, and I do think I did that. I think I did a much better job of showing the warm light and cool shadows without overdoing the cool shadows especially. I feel like anytime I do a redraw, when I look at the first version, I'm always like, oh, like I always want to cringe, but I actually think that's a good sign because that just shows that you have grown so much since then. So if you ever look at your old art and you're just like, oh my gosh, like, please no, like, please don't worry. Like, I think everybody kind of does that, but I also think that's a really good sign because you have grown, which is awesome. And it just shows that you've gotten better. So yeah, moving into this like second version, I think my art style has definitely changed a bit. I think I'm slowly moving away from that sort of anime kind of looking face and more towards a more realistic type of face, which I think you'll definitely see once you see the end of, I think you'll see a big difference with that, especially with their faces, but also the proportions and stuff. Another thing that I think I've really improved on and that I really worked hard on last year, I did so many clothing studies. I looked to like Frostbite Studios and It's Lopez. Like, I did so many studies of Carol Mello. Love how she paints and draws clothing in her characters. Absolutely love it. Beautiful. I really wanted to work on getting more detailed because I feel like you can see in this first version, I didn't add a lot of detail, and whenever I was doing my line work for this new version, I think you can especially see that with the ribbon like on the front of her like bodice. I paid a lot more attention to like detail like that and just tried to add a lot more just like juicy little details, and I have really been loving adding that to my work lately, so I'm really happy with that. It's cool to see the difference that it makes with my art because focusing on those like extra details, I think makes a huge difference. I think I also got a little bit better at showing depth in paintings, especially with the lanterns. Really the only thing I did the first time around was I just blurred some of the lanterns to show that they were like kind of moving and maybe a little bit further back. Okay, sorry, we had a baby emergency. In the first version, I really just blurred a couple of lanterns and was like, that's good. But I think I've learned to sort of pay more attention to ways to add depth. So for example, I only paid a lot of attention to like maybe 4 or 5 lanterns, and then the rest I didn't spend as much time on. And then I also made sure that those values for the lanterns that I sort of want to fade into the background are much more similar in value to the background itself. And I think that really helped make them seem like they were like fading into the background, which was a really cool effect, and I think it worked out really well. If you are thinking about doing a redraw, I just have a couple of like quick tips. I think I've shared some of these in previous videos before, so some of these might sound familiar, but the first one is to always analyze your own artwork. If you're just doing it for fun, like, it's, you know, you don't have to like have any rules or anything, but if you are doing it to try and sort of benchmark your progress, I think when you look at your old artwork, the one that you're going to redraw, I think it's really important to look at it and see what mistakes you made and what you want to change in the next one before you start. And the reason I suggest doing this is because you can look at a painting and know that it's bad considering like you've improved, like you know that you can do better. But what specifically is it that you want to work on? Because if you don't really know and you just kind of redraw it, it might not feel as though you might not be able to showcase what you've improved on as much because you're just kind of like going through the motions. I find that you're much more intentional and present if you just think about before you start kind of where you've improved and what specifically you want to show in your new version that shows that you've improved in those areas. So for me, for example, anatomy has gotten better since then. I also think I put a lot more detail into my artwork now, which I think is an improvement from this first version that I really wanted to showcase. And so I made sure to make that like a focus for this one because I want it to be a sort of benchmark of my progress. Another tip that I have for you is to find one way to elevate your painting. Sometimes this can be a little tricky because I think there's kind of 2 ways to do this. And one is by adding something to your painting. I've done a Jasmine redraw a couple of times now, and the last time I did that Jasmine redraw, the thing that I sort of added, I wanted to add more like movement to the painting. And so I ended up adding these sort of flower petals throughout the painting that I think really helped with that. So that was one way that I could like add to my painting and help elevate it a little bit and make it a little bit more unique from the other version. The second way that you can sort of elevate a painting is actually by taking away something. If you feel like you have too much going on in a painting, you can actually take some things out and it might actually help your composition or just help your painting not feel so crowded or like there's too much going on, and that can actually elevate your painting in that way because you've sort of taken out all of the excess and simplified. And sometimes that can make a really big difference, especially in composition, I think. My just sort of final tip, this kind of goes with the last thing, just don't be afraid to make changes. To me, for a redraw, as long as the essence is the same, I'm okay if it doesn't look exactly like the first version. I'll show my Jasmine redraw that I did like a year or two ago, just to kind of show you the benchmarks that I went through with that painting. The very first one versus the very last one look very different from each other. Like, they don't really look the same other than they're the same character, but I think that the essence is kind of still there, and it's okay to change things. Like, as long as you are, in your opinion, like improving and making progress towards a better version for yourself, I think that it's fine to like make changes to your redraws. I used to find redraws really boring because I would just sort of draw the same thing over and over and over again. But once I started making changes and just like shifting it to better fit the style that I was doing at the time, I think that really made a big difference. And like in this Rapunzel example, I've actually changed the composition and shown more of Rapunzel's body than the first version. I think it made the composition a lot stronger. And yeah, it's changing the initial version, but I think it's making it better. And so in that case, I don't mind that there's that change. I hope that made sense. And as we sort of get into the rendering process, I'm not going to show too much of this. If you'd like to see me talk about my rendering process for this painting, I actually have a tutorial that I just put up over on Patreon that goes over all of my rendering process. So this is basically just how I get from my messy sketch with some basic colors to a much more finalized, detailed version. Basically how I go from point A to point B. I show a demo in there. I show some of the rendering process for this painting actually. You can sign up for my Patreon and you can watch that video along with some other tutorial videos that I've already posted on there. And yeah, here is the final version. So I'll put both versions side by side so you can see sort of the difference of my art. Again, this first version was from sometime last year. I think it was a little over a year ago, and then this version is one I did a few weeks ago. So yeah, I am really happy with the progress that I've made. I think I've made a lot of improvements in anatomy and just paying more attention to detail, and some of the foundational concepts of just like depth and value and lighting, I think has really improved and come a long way. I know I still have so much to work on, but I do think my art is heading in a direction that I'm really happy with. So yeah, that's exciting. That's exciting. Yeah, I think that's all I have for you guys. I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.